Hello, everybody. This is Dave Wallace coming to you from my home here in Waihawa, Hawaii. And it's Sunday, so it's Talk Story Time. Today, I wanted to share with you my experience teaching remote viewing to high school students at Campbell High School. And just about a week and a half ago, I was interviewed by Ellie Molina, who has a podcast. And she is a teacher, remote viewing teacher, who teaches mainly elementary school kids and adults. Okay, so she's a very gifted psychic. She's a very gifted astrologer. So she does have her podcast and website going. So we talked story and we reconnected with each other. We first heard of each other and started contacting each other back in 2012 when I was teaching the psychology class at Campbell High School. Okay. Now, one of the things that I found that when I started teaching psychology back in 2011, uh, it's a boring subject. if you just stick through, if you just stick to the theory and the people and the things that you need to do, you have one semester to try and communicate with the kids on different things that was important to the history, basically, and some of the theories involved that created this field of psychology as we know it. So I felt it was boring because, you know, after memorizing theory and who people were, well, what are you going to do with that? So in my second year of teaching, by that time, I was an established remote viewer. And I had been an active remote viewer since 2009. So I had some years under my belt and experience, and I felt that, and I want to gift my students who come into my class with an ability, make them different, give them an opportunity to explore their minds. What are they capable of? Okay. And so that's why I started teaching my students how to remote view. Okay. And the standard remote viewing process didn't work initially with them because it's long, it's tedious. In order to do a full-on remote viewing session would take tons and tons of paper. For me, I was taking up to almost 30 pages of paper to do one remote viewing session. And this remote viewing session can last an entire class time. And about 90 minutes if we really wanted to. So, and the kids were getting really antsy about it. They weren't responding. Right around the time I'm doing this, I discovered another function of associative remote viewing called associative remote viewing. And in associative remote viewing, it's a really quick, almost like getting a snapshot of something and creating a quick sketch. And associative remote viewing was used to predict an event, okay, that's just about to happen. And an example of an event, I was just watching an event earlier today. It's a basketball NBA, NBA semifinals with the Hawks and the Bucks. That's an event. And in this event, you're going to have a winner and you're going to have a loser. This is what we call a binary event. So in associative remote viewing, before the games are played, we can look ahead into the future and pick two targets. And these target pictures, one can represent the Bucks win, and the other one, the Hawks win. Okay, and so before the game is played, you got two pictures representing the both teams, and you focus and you draw one. You draw a sketch. After you finish drawing the sketch, you open up the envelopes and you compare the pictures and which of the pictures match your sketch the best. And the side that matches the picture that matches your sketch better is the prediction you're going to make. For those of you who predicted that the Bucks was going to win today, congratulations. Okay, so that's basically what associative remote viewing was. And when I decided to move away from traditional remote viewing and go into predicting, making predictions, and do something really quick, within 5 minutes, my students could get a picture, sketch, and after they create the sketch, we pull out the pictures and have the kids say, okay, which of the pictures match yours? And they get to pick. And so it was really quick, and it latched on really well with the kids. So the whole formatting and things like that in my class, I was able to teach my students associative remote viewing, and by pressing their minds slightly ahead into the future, they're able to make really, really accurate predictions. Okay, so and when I first started doing this, they had no clue that we were doing games until after we did the work and after we judged the photos and decided which side we were going to go with, side A, side B. And then I would tell them, and they get all excited. Now they got something to look forward to. Oh, is my prediction going to be all right or going to be wrong, you know? And when later in the day, when the game is played, they come running back to my room. Mister, you got them right. So there's excitement in the class. And there's a willingness and participation in this. And meanwhile, the kids are working on developing their mind. Okay? And one of the things that associative remote viewing and any type of remote viewing requires is, before you do your sketch and before you get into doing your work, you need to settle your mind. And by settling your mind, I taught the kids how to basically do a self hypnosis. And this was a relaxation that I would verbally walk them through. And it's a relaxation, telling them to breathe deeply and exhale slowly and close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, your shoulders begin to droop and relaxation begins to take over your body. And I trace the relaxation going from the top of their head through their body, down their face, down the arms, and their chest, working its way down to their legs and their feet and toes. And this is the voice I would use. And I tell you, within 2 to 3 minutes, you get a bunch of snoozing, snoring students, totally relaxed. And that's the way I started every one of my classes, putting them through a relaxation where they don't have to worry about any concerns that's going on right now, where they can just focus on one thing. And that one thing was to see if they could see a picture. See if they could see a picture in their mind and recreate it on a piece of paper. That was it. And a lot of these kids that I was teaching, during this time I was working in an inclusion setting. I was the lead teacher. I was a history specialist. And I had another teacher, a co-teacher, who was a special education specialist. And that person would be working with me to assist me in meeting the educational needs of my special needs students. So in the inclusion class, the ideal proportion was about 25% of my students would be special needs, and the 75% would be uh, regular students, and would be a mixture of middle ground academic, low performing academic, and some of them were pretty high. Now, when we started doing the ARV, associative remote viewing, I had anticipated that my talented students, the ones that are performing really high academics, would be my top remote viewers. That wasn't the case. In fact, one of my best remote viewers had traumatic brain injury. One part of his brain wasn't working, and he was my best remote viewer. Okay. There was also in one of my experiments, I wanted to see if students could pick up. Normally the games that we're talking about, like football, basketball, baseball, there's winner or loser. Yeah, because there's only two teams going on. But in other sports such as golfing, okay, tennis, okay, horse racing, they have multiple entrants. Okay, so to test if my students could pick up the winner of a field that contained more than one or two winners, and there was a bunch of them, a bunch of contestants, I decided to run experiments on that. And the experiment I chose was horse racing. And it's really funny because in horse racing, there's these derbies that contain maybe they have about anywhere from 5 to 7 horses, and these special derbies are for horses that never won anything, and I call them the glue factory sweepstakes. If you don't make them there, so next stop is glue factory for you. So these are the races that I picked, and so my students were running that. And interesting enough, I ran that for 2 weeks, and in 1 week, the second week of doing this, one of my students was able to pick the winner of every single race we went after on that day for 5 consecutive days. And again, he had no clue. For him, it was just drawing a picture. I didn't tell them until at the end of the week what we were doing. And I posted the winners, and everybody was saying, "Oh, wow, this guy was awesome." Okay. So, uh, and some of the feedback that I started to get from other teachers, especially the teachers in second period, like my students would have me first and second period, and after that they would go to another class. Well, a lot of the second period teachers were contacting me and saying, "Hey, Dave, what are you doing in your class?" So, "Well, teaching my kids how to remote view." "So why?" Says, "Wow, the kids with ADHD take your class early in the morning. Yeah, they come to my class. They focus. They focus. They're doing their work. They're not horsing around, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And it's a big change. So what are you doing?" Says, "Well, I'm just teaching them how to meditate, and we're doing remote associative remote viewing." "Why?" Says, "Man, this is something we all need to do." So that was the most notable change in the kids that I was having. Just the addition of 10 minutes of focused meditation and walking them through to relax. And boom, the rest of the day they were really, really sharp. Okay. So that was with my first and second period students. I had the funniest counseling session I had is one of my students was not um, didn't want to participate in the meditation. He felt it was stupid and he was angry, so I called up the parents and say, you know what, I'm doing this in my classroom and your son isn't participating. So I called a family uh, conference, and so in a conference, I'm explaining to the parents. I said, you know what, we spend 10 minutes at the beginning of class having the kids relax, and your son is disrupting the kids and anybody around them. He's making fun of them. He's um, picking on them, and he's not willing to participate. And so the kid is kind of like squirming and stuff. And I said, so because he's not participating, he's getting a 0, and he may fail this section right here. And the father says, well, what do they do when they meditate? He says, well, by the time they're done in 10 minutes, um, most of my kids are snoring. They're sleeping. And his father look at me and look at the son. He says, you letting your kids sleep? Yeah. And they're getting credit for that? Yeah. And you look at the son. He's stupid. How come you don't like sleep? you know, why don't you want to sleep and get credit? That's real easy. That's the easiest grade you can get. And I said, exactly. And so all I want them to do is relax, sleep, calm down, so that they can focus on what we need to do. And it was really funny. I tell you, the parents was ready to crank this kid. Just low. So these are some of the things experienced. I did have some run-ins with some of my colleagues who claimed that um, what I was teaching was part of the devil's work. Yeah, I get horns. Yeah, and it's really interesting hearing their perspective and them not really understanding what I was doing. Okay, so anytime you push the envelope and you do something different, um, people will look at you and think you're an oddball, and I don't mind that. Okay, so some of the long-term changes that occurred in some of my students after doing that for about 3 years. Some of the feedback I got from the students themselves is that they found their minds kind of like already projecting into the future, looking at different things. I had several students who worked at Burger King and McDonald's, and they were taking orders of their customers. And it came a time where some of these cashiers, uh, before the customer even making the order, they're pressing the buttons because they know what these people are going to be ordering. And it was very common among my students who were able to do that. One of my students eventually joined the army, and he was a very, very gifted remote viewer. In fact, I taught him the long format on how to do remote viewing, standard remote viewing, or CRV. And when he got into the military, he visited me and said that he was able to get into intelligence. So he was doing some intelligence work. A very smart kid. So I was very thankful that I had the opportunity to teach these kids and giving them tools that could actually prepare them for more things around them. Yeah. Um, and I'm very happy with that. Okay. And thank you very much for watching. And this is, until next time, this is Dave Wallace from Waihua saying aloha.